and welcome to Jesus for Asia Now. I'm Natalie Wood, and today we're going to check up on a family we interviewed here on this show just over a year ago, right before they moved to Thailand. My husband John is here with us today. Hello, love.
Hi, darling. How are you?
I'm doing good today.
Awesome.
And I'm excited about our story.
Yes, this is an ongoing, developing story, project, vision, dream
Right.
for probably almost a decade.
Right.
I first went up to Sukhothai, which is a small city in northern Thailand. There's a big plain from Bangkok all the way up several hundred miles. And in the northern end of that plain is Sukhothai. It used to be the capital of northern Thailand way before the big unification happened several hundred years ago. There's no Adventist presence whatsoever in that entire city. 35,000 people, so not a huge city, but no Adventist presence. And I'm thinking, there should be. And so I started praying. We started praying, and we started putting out the call. And many, many years went by of just praying for the city. Now, I have to tell you before we go any farther, so don't forget, there's another city we're praying for also right now.
Right.
And that city is 125,000 people. And it's a big city, but it needs to be reached. There's no Adventist, there's no missionary, there's no church, there's no Bible worker, there's nothing of our faith in that city. That needs to change.
Right.
So in the fall of 2018, we went to Virginia to a church where a friend of mine from high school was the pastor.
Right.
And we made 3 presentations, and this family was like, God's calling us.
Right.
Where can we go? Where is your biggest need? And we're like, Sukhothai.
Right. So people can watch that previous episode that we shot with them because we interviewed them.
Each of them independently.
Right.
He had gone over with me for like a couple of weeks just to check everything out.
Right.
She had never been overseas before. His family, he was raised in a missionary family, so he was all, we're ready to go. Let's do this.
It was simpler for him.
Yes.
But it was much harder for her to come to that.
And what's unique about their family is they had a lot of kids.
Right. They have 8 children.
Yes.
And 5 of them are in Thailand with them. So
the 3 others are older, and so they've got their own lives back here in America. But
right, going to school and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. But anyway, so they launched, and it took them a year to sell their house, sell everything,
work through everything,
get everything organized and get ready to launch. But then they launched, and they went over there with a family of 8. And one of the
older boys was there with them.
Yeah.
When they first went.
And so the plan was that they would settle into Chiang Mai for 6 months and get language study.
Right.
They got to Chiang Mai, and they didn't thrive. They didn't do well.
One of their sons has asthma, and with the pollution from the smog from cars there, and also the burning that they do in some of the agricultural activities, he was not doing well. He ended up in the hospital within a week or 2 of them getting there, and so it was really scary.
Yeah, and so during that time, they were, she was struggling, and she's like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I was like, between freaking out and faith.
Right.
She was
back and forth.
But what's amazing about them is that before they came, they said, we're scared about this, but we want to learn faith. We want to see God work in our lives, and we want to be tested. We want that. It's going to be hard, but we want that. And this is the right attitude, because this is God's plan for us. This is God's life program. He took the children of Israel out of Egypt, but he took them through a series of tests so that they would learn to trust him.
Right.
And most people don't want to go through that.
Right.
They want to have the salvation. They want to be out of Egypt, but they don't want to learn real faith, real dependence on God, because it's hard.
Right.
But those that want that, God does amazing. I've seen this over and over and over again in a lot of people's lives, that when they choose that path, God steps out and he does amazing things for them. And they come out with strong testimonies and strong faith.
Right. Right.
And so this was the path that the Nortons were on.
Right.
And so during that time when they were struggling up in Chiang Mai, they decided, well, we'll just go down to Sukhothai, which is about 5-6 hours south of Chiang Mai, and we'll just check out the city, see where we're going to go. So they got Jonathan and Hannah to drive them down there. And Jonathan just happened to turn down a road that he'd been down before, because his parents had looked at moving to that city the previous year. and turned down a road where there's this house that at that time, when he took his parents there, had been under construction. They drive down that road, and that same house, the guy just had put up a for rental sign. So the construction had finished. He called the guy came out there, showed it to him, and they rented it.
Wow, that same day.
That same day. You know how long some people look for a rental?
Yeah. That's a miracle.
Yeah, and then the owner was like so supportive of what they were doing. He bought them a kitchen table, massive kitchen table, because he saw how big their family was.
Right.
And
right,
then,
he showed up one day and said, "Come help me."
yeah.
And they didn't know where they were going, but they went to help him, and they went and got all the table and all the chairs and everything.
And then they're like, she's, this neighborhood, she's like, our front gate I feel like we should leave our front gate open because everybody else's gate is closed. Is it okay? And I says, yeah, as the Lord leads. So as they open their gate, before long, within the next couple of days, everybody else's gate was open too. And the kids started playing, the neighborhood kids started playing together. They started making these contacts.
Yeah.
And they started, well, of course, they are learning the language online.
Right.
So
that's also a miracle.
Yeah.
Because before that, it wasn't available online without a larger fee.
Right.
But for the same price, the place was willing to do online for them for the sake of their son.
Right. So they're going down to this place. They haven't gone through cultural training, or language training, and so they're raw from America in this new place. And what happens is the neighbors see that they have need. Oh, you need to buy some food? Yes. Where do you buy food? Oh, I'll take you. And then the neighbor would then take them to the store, introduce them to the store owner, and tell them what they needed. Right.
And help them. People at the market would take them and take them to wherever it was that they needed whatever. And
so these connections were starting to be formed because of their need. And then we remember Prow.
Right.
Okay. The young lady that was adopted by Josh and Chitlata Bowder.
Right.
Then a little while later, she found out she had siblings.
Right.
Younger siblings.
She'd never known about them.
Yeah, like 10 years younger.
Wow.
A boy and a girl, Wind and Sky. They were in terrible condition. Just terrible condition in the slum, and the aunt or whoever was taking care of them was like half paralyzed. And so they were just fending for themselves in the slum environment. And Josh and Chitlata couldn't take any more kids because they were maxed out.
Right. They're only allowed to have a certain number.
Right.
Before it's illegal.
And so they called the Nortons, "Can you take 2 kids?" And I remember their response, "If you're looking for somebody to say, I have to pray about it, let me think about it, you've got the wrong people."
Yeah.
We'll take them.
We've already been praying.
Right. And
that's what Casey's answer was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So they took 2 kids. Before long, they took
3 more.
3 more. So now they're maxed out.
Right. So they have 5 of their own children there, plus 5 children that speak 3 other languages.
And what's amazing about this, we get messages from people, our viewers, saying, what are you doing about the flesh trade? Because it's
huge problem.
It's a huge problem in Southeast Asia, Thailand, especially Bangkok.
Right.
And I have a really good friend that has done ministry in Thailand for a very long time, and they used to work with the flesh trade, with prostitutes. And he told me that the best thing we can do is bring education to the kids before they get sucked into that trade.
Save them before it comes to them.
Yeah, because once they get into that, it's really hard, and a lot of them don't even want to get out. And if you pull them out, it's like they just want to go back in because it's easy money, and it just messes with their mind, and it's just a bad thing.
Self-value and all that, self-worth.
Exactly. And so to keep them out of that flesh trade is really the number one priority. And so that's what's happening here, is they're getting those kids out of there before they get sucked into that. Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Very cool. So very excited about that. But we have a video that introduces us to, who these kids are and who this family is and everything.
Okay, let's watch that now.
Okay.
Harvey, that's too full over there. They couldn't get a kid. Robbie has had
sort of a passion and an interest in the mission field for a long time because of his mission family, and I did not.
And we had John and Natalie come to our church and speak on what they do.
And it was as a result of those meetings that we felt compelled to come. And so that was a whole process of praying, making sure that it was God leading. And we felt pretty confident that he was going to have us here by September of 2019. And all the pieces fell into place. We ended up in Thailand on August 28th or 30th. It was like one day before, September. So his leading was very clear and evident. I remember at our house in Virginia, I would walk around the house in the mornings praying, and I take my Bible with me and I'll sort of stop occasionally and read something, and one of the verses, and I don't even know where it is right now, but it said, enlarge your tents or expand your whatever. And as we already felt like that's what we were going to come here to do, and as I was reading that, it really felt obvious that God was saying children are in your future, and I really felt like he was asking me to start praying for those kids. And so that, as I was walking around praying for the children that we had at that time, I also started praying for the children that he was going to give us. We moved into this house in Sukhothai a month after getting to Thailand, and then 2 weeks after we got here, Josh Bowder sent a message. I think he was kind of joking, and he just said, let us know when you're ready to take in some kids. We just answered back, well, we're ready anytime. Also kind of joking. And
they gave us a call and asked us if we'd be willing to take in Wind and Sky, and we said sure. And so we got Wind and Sky from the slums of Bangkok.
They were street kids, they fought, they punched.
And now it's just to see the change that has come upon Wind and Sky since they've come here has been a blessing to see how God can actually work. We had made a promise to God we weren't actively looking for children, but if he sent them our way, that we weren't going to tell anybody no.
I guess it was almost 9 months after Wind and Sky came, we got another call from Josh saying that there were more children. Gao and Fasai came, their brother and sister, who actually never really lived together. So they don't really know each other, and they don't speak the same language, so they can't even communicate. I think 5 days after Gao and Fasai came, Jing came. And they're from a totally different setting from what we understand than what Wind and Sky are, and they have adjusted much easier. Because why? What was the question?
That is a little bit difficult because we only get them for a little bit in the morning, and then we take them to school, and then when they get back from school, we only have them for a little bit in the afternoon, and then they're in bed.
One of the biggest concerns, honestly, isn't even the teachings. It's the stuff that the other kids have, like on their cell phones, and are showing them. And it's like you're trying to bring them home then in this little bit of time, show them lots of love, but then also help them like decompress and like put off all of the stuff that they've taken in during the day. And with, having this little bit of language to be able to do that with, I think that's probably honestly the hardest part of having them, is just trying to undo what's done every day. I think ultimately what we envision and we feel like God is leading toward, especially with the number of children that have come in such a short period of time, is to establish
something that's big enough that we could develop and put several homes on the property so that we won't have like a traditional orphanage where there's one big building with lots of kids. We want to have kids that have actual home environment.
And also where we can establish a school so that we can give them a practical education that really introduces them to discipleship. We want to teach them to want to teach others and not just impart knowledge to them. It will take a piece of property and the funding to build And it'll take, I think, a Thai teacher with a master's degree, and obviously help.
If you ask them, they don't want to go home. They miss their parents. They talk about their parents, but you ask them if they want to go back, they say no, they like it here. So knowing that is heartwarming, that God is actually working in us to show them the love of an actual family. But the biggest prayer we need is that they will accept who Christ is by seeing the example of Christ in us.
I think that the thing that we most need prayer for is just to have a continued willingness to do hard things. We need to somehow be able to learn the language. It's not optional for us with what we're doing. And I think just for these kids to have their minds open and for the Holy Spirit to be able to do the work that we're literally not able to do. And maybe it's not even our job. We want to be humble enough to step out of the way and allow the Holy Spirit so that God gets all the glory.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
Yeah. God's really called them for child ministry.
Right. It's such a miracle what God has done in those children's lives to bring
Yes.
them from where they were. And they didn't go into the stories.
Right.
Well, when the first two came, when Wind and Sky came, the little girl would see demons. And one time Casey came to the room and she was there screaming, "Don't let it hurt me, don't." And she was looking at nothing in the corner. But there was obviously something she could see that Casey couldn't see.
Right.
And then Casey ran to the other room and asked her son that was there to pray, and then ran back, and the little girl was pushed up against the bed, just flailing there, trying to get away, and she couldn't get away. And so she said, "In the name of Jesus, leave." And little girl hit the floor and ran to her and just sobbing in her arms. And just an amazing story of how, you know, she saw that there was major spiritual warfare right there.
Yes, yes. And God had prepared her for that.
Right.
But can you imagine that little girl being harassed by demons when there was nobody to call Christ to
help her.
Yeah, unprotected?
Yeah.
That's just really sobering. How many others are out there like that?
Yeah. Probably a lot more than we would like to think.
Right.
Right.
Right. But during that video, you saw that they were talking about a need to set up their own school and to find their own property and to build houses on that property.
Right.
Since that video was filmed, they have found a perfect piece of property.
Right.
Yeah. And we have a video for that.
Okay. Let's watch that now.
Okay.
We lived way out in the country in the mountains, Blue Ridge Mountains in Virginia, and we didn't have a large property or anything like that, but we lived in the country, and we had plenty of room for the kids to play.
When we left Virginia and ended up in Sukhothai, and there was just so much concrete everywhere, there was this sense of loss, especially for the children, the loss of their ability to grow up surrounded in nature. And so for the last year, you know, there's been a bit of a grieving process, I think, for us and for the kids. The Thai children that we have don't know what they're missing. But as our family size has increased and the need for especially outdoor space has grown.
Casey and I have been praying and wanting to find a location that's bigger, with more yard space. Not necessarily a bigger house, just more yard space so that the kids can go out and play somewhere with trees, so that the kids can play on the trees and climb and just be kids.
We know the kids need useful occupation. They need to be able to expend their energy outdoors and just really learn from the book of nature. just this week, I think just yesterday, we came upon a listing for this property here, and it's 24 or 25 rye, and it has multiple houses and just building structures that will meet very specifically the needs that we've been praying about. And the land is just amazing to be here with the kids and to hear their excitement and how excited they are to tell the other kids about this possibility.
It is a beautiful place, and it is everything that Casey and I have talked about. Has all the accommodations that we need and more, a lot more. There's nobody else around. There's just rice fields everywhere, as far as you can see. And driving into here, there's a couple little back roads and a dirt road to get into the property. And then as soon as we found the property and drove in, it was like coming home. It's flower bushes everywhere. There's fruit trees everywhere. Plenty of places where we could make a garden, and then plenty of water to sustain everything too.
There's familiar sounds, and it just has this feel that this is what we've been waiting for and praying for the last year. And yeah, there's definitely just this sense of peace and this feeling of home being here.
It has 3 different houses on it, plus other rooms already developed for about the same price as we would find for a smaller chunk of just a rice field, which is a blessing because you can't find something like this for the amount of money that they're asking for.
So beyond just meeting the needs of the children, we've had sort of this dream, this vision for creating a place to be able to bring people for discipleship training, to allow new believers to come and live among other believers, to really disciple them in Christian living. And as a byproduct of that, we would love to do camp meetings where we're bringing together, new and old believers to be revitalized in the Christian walk. And this space would be perfect for that. There's lots of lodging, there's lots of outdoor space, there's outdoor bathrooms. It just would meet every need that we would have to utilize this for that purpose as well. While we are very hopeful that this, God led us here because this is the place we want to stay surrendered to His will. We don't want to jump ahead of Him, and so we would invite, anybody who sees this to join us in prayer that God will not only lead through the process, but make it very evident whether this is the place or not.
Isn't that exciting?
That is. It's a beautiful place, looks like.
And it's already got the buildings. They don't have to build.
Right.
It's already there. And this is a lot cheaper than the majority of the properties. I mean, it's like half to a third the price of the normal property of that stature, of that nature in the area.
Wow.
Thankfully, the owner here of this property has given us terms.
Right.
So she's allowing us to pay it off in 2 years.
Right.
And so
that translates to, how much do they have to put down?
About $20,000 down, and then $7,500 every month for the next 2 years.
Wow.
So that's a big chunk, but with God, all things are possible.
Right.
And all together, we can each give a little bit.
Right.
And pray a lot.
Right.
and
God will open the doors.
Right.
So Robbie and Casey is quite a writer.
Yes,
she's been sharing her spiritual journey for a long time.
Yes.
And especially since they went to Thailand, she's made a commitment that she's going to continue to share it. Whether it's hard or whether it's easy, she's going to share whatever happens in their lives so that other people can be encouraged on the spiritual journey as well.
Correct.
And so there's a couple different ways to find that information.
Okay.
One is on Facebook. There's a page called Walking Redeemed. And then she has a blog also called Walking Redeemed. And then their YouTube channel is also Walking Redeemed, Casey Norton.
Okay.
Because that's her name. So you can go there and see videos that they've made recently. They just started doing this not too long ago because they had to get settled in and everything like that first. But now they're making videos where she shares some of these spiritual journey type of thoughts that she's having.
Correct.
So
yeah, they're very inspiring.
Yes, and challenging too.
Yes. Yeah.
Challenge is the way I think as well. And we'll just show a brief clip from one of those now.
Okay.
When things feel impossible or too weighty, he shows up and slides things right into place. In so many ways, we're doing nothing here besides tending to that which he puts before us each day. Sometimes the effort's ugly, and other times slightly more graceful. But always the true impact comes from his love and mercy being so desperate to want every last person to know they are seen. If we can sometimes be those hands God uses to work a little love into tired, worn-down hearts, well then, we're all the more grateful to even have the opportunity.
Well, it's neat to have someone over there that's willing to write down and put into words these challenging insights that she's having.
And somebody that has those insights to then teach others.
Right.
In that country, in that dark land that less than 1% is Christian.
Right.
And so to bring some of these concepts that hit at the heart of who our identity is and who we are as people and how we live life.
Right.
It's going to be wonderful to have that influence in that country.
Right.
And to train our future Bible workers. It's going to be wonderful to have that level of training.
Right. They do have a couple right now that's joining them to be Bible workers there.
That's the other thing we forgot to mention.
Right.
They've also just rented a place downtown, 3-story building, and this is going to be their language school and English language school. They're teaching the local tithe, and the first church plant.
Right.
That is so cool.
Yeah, and to see what God is going to do, it's just, I can't wait.
Right.
But I'm so thankful for what he's doing already.
Yes.
Such an encouragement to continue to pray for them.
God is truly leading.
Right, he is. And if you would please pray for the Norton family and these precious children they have taken in. If you would like to help this work go forward in Thailand, you can contact us at Jesus for Asia, P.O. Box 1221, Collegedale, Tennessee, 37315. Call us at 423-413-7321 or visit our website at jesusforasia.org. May God richly bless you until we see you next time on Jesus for Asia Now.